Peace, peace, peace. Yo, Halito. Halito. What up, everybody? Saba, what's up? Peace to everybody that's tuning in now and that will tune in later. Welcome to Flambeau Fridays. Defy for Fridays. All right. We already counting down. We already did the countdown to Carnival MardiGras. Did y'all enjoy yourself? I did. I did. Now we are getting into what happens the day after Mardi Gras Carnival. We did tap into pre-Lent when I broke down the origins of Carnival and Mardi Gras. We traveled from Trinidad and Tobago, the diaspora, the Caribbean, and we traveled to all the different places in the Caribbean that celebrate Carnival, Camboulet, all the derivatives of Carnival, Mardi Gras, to Mobile, Alabama, and the whole state of Louisiana. And it's highlighted in New Orleans, Louisiana. So we broke that down. Look at my playlists: Flambeau Fridays, Fire Fridays. Check out that playlist where I break down the origins of Carnival, Mardi Gras. I even talk about how the Camboulet is the lighting of the sugar cane. It's the celebration of the harvest of the sugar cane fields. We talked about the sugar cane plantations, the Creole plantation houses, the Anglo plantation houses. We broke down a lot leading up to Carnival and Mardi Gras. Now we're going to talk about the day after. So there's a pre-Lent when our people just was embracing our indigenous traditions, spirituality, and culture. And then when Catholicism came in there, then Lent attached itself to our celebrations. Our ancestors already had ceremonial times when it was about purification and cleansing. So we was already about that life. And we also celebrated the different seasons, things that happen on earth and, in the heavens. It mirrors everything. Um, our ancestors set the fucking standard. They are the origin of spirituality and culture. Melanated tribal nations, indigenous peoples, original peoples on all 7 continents. We originated spirituality and culture. All right. So that's from the darkest brown to the lightest brown. All right. All shades. The people with the soul, the spirit. Right. So we're going to get into Ash Wednesday, Lent, and how it's connected to Catholicism. Yes, you want to, eat all the, the leftover stuff from Mardi Gras, and then you want to get your ashes, Ash Wednesday, and then you want to start your 40-day fast, fasting from something that you love. All right, up into Ishtar Day, Easter Day. All right, so around that time. So thank y'all for tuning in. We about to dig in just a little bit. It's an overview. Peace to everybody in the chat and that will be in the chat and those observing. Peace to y'all. So we're going to get into Ash Wednesday, voodoo, hoodoo, and various indigenous ceremonies of purification. Now, if you know some of your genealogy and you have studied your tribal nations' ways, their ceremonies, and how they cleanse, etc., purify, and how they celebrate. Now, the Creole culture, we don't separate sacred inebriation from some of our ceremonies. Okay, we don't separate that. We will have some ceremonial rum to tap in. We will have that cigar. I have a cigar on one of my altars, but and we will have the sacred prayer pipes. My granny, she had a corn cob tobacco pipe, ceremonial pipe. So we did things to purify ourselves. All right. We use organic, straight from the earth tobacco, etc. Now I do got some organic American Spirit because I rocks with American Spirit. So that's for ceremonial, purification, cleansing time, getting your affirmations in, or your prayers and affirmations in. Okay. So let's look at Lent. First, we're gonna break down the thumbnail. All right, we focusing on the gumbo pot of spirituality and culture and religion, because religion creeped in there with Catholicism. You notice how all that shit is dead unless it's some soulful, spiritual, indigenous people practicing it. If we ain't practicing it, you go up in there, it's fucking dead. You've been into a Catholic church. It feels dead in there. It feels hollow and dead. Like there's no life in there. But you go to a spirit-filled, those holiness churches that we talked about, those Creole, down south southern folk magic, revival, holiness spirit churches, then you gonna see indigenous practices. You're gonna see, and you're gonna feel the spirit in there, even from the drums to the music to just our presence there. We bring the life there, right? That's already understood, right? So we're just gonna break down the thumbnail. Of course, that's me celebrating Carnival Mardi Gras, and I got my cigar. This is me after the head washing ceremony that I did. So I got my cigar, sending up prayers and affirmation for our people, because our people be debating and doing some shit, and we need to embrace that round table more. That round table of our various vast spirituality and culture from all 7 continents. But first, we gotta get on one accord in the Americas and the diaspora. Okay, so this is me after the cleansing and purification ceremony, head washing. I got my white on, and I got my cigar. There is the archetype, the voodoo priestess, Marie Laveau. We also have the Misnomer, Black Madonna. This is Urzuli. All right, you have Urzuli Dantor, Urzuli Frida. You have the pantheon of Urzulis. You also have Tonazan, the Virgin of Guadalupe. All right, this is the melanated. And then you have Sibyls, the prophetesses, the oracles, the spirit-filled women, the wise women that gave words of past, present, future, and just wisdom. You have the prophetess and the priestess. All right, the Sibyls of old. That's what she represents. This is the great mothers. This is the voodoo priestess. We have the Veves, a way to communicate with the spiritual realm. And then over here we have where Catholicism just came on in. So they took our version of Tonazan, that's the brown Virgin Guadalupe, in relation to the misnomer Black Madonna, the Urzulis, or Saint Barbara. I got different derivatives of them, and I'll show them in a minute. So we do have the Great Mother, Urzuli. All right, they also refer to her as in Lukumi. Okay, you have Lukumi, Candomblé, Santeria, Umbanda. These are diasporic religions, along with hoodoo and voodoo, and even Obia, different ones from the diaspora and the Americas. So this represents the great brown mother and her child. All right, we also have this is Corrida del Cobre. All right. Yeah, her, the great mothers. All right. And I'm highlighting this because Catholicism, they lightweight focus on the Virgin Mary, but this predates the Virgin Mary, right? These are brown representations of the Great Mother. So you got that one. You got the Virgin Guadalupe, Tonazan. All right, the Great Brown Mother, which they later called her the Virgin of Guadalupe. That big old church in Mexico, they built that church over a great mound, stone mound, all right? And then I do have the diasporic powers, which I did show this. This represents the children, the spiritual forces of nature, and the children. They call it the misnomer, the 7 African powers, but it should be called the 7 diasporic powers, because it's more than just, it's all of the Caribbean. All right. So the 7 powers, this is called the 7 powers. 7 potencias, the 7 powers. Maybe I should make this bigger just so y'all can see, but, and then we're going to get into it. Let me make this bigger, and then, all right, so let's get the first one right. All right, this is the Great Mother, Urzuli, Dantor, Urzuli Frida, all the derivatives of the great misnomer Black Madonna is just the darkest brown Madonna, the Great Mother. All right. And then they also call her in Lukumi Saint Barbara. So you have that Santeria. When Catholicism came in, our ancestors had these outward images, but they was celebrating and practicing voodoo and hoodoo and all those indigenous practices in private. But they had the saints and different things that represent Catholicism in the forefront. but they were celebrating that real shit in the dark, in private, in their own ceremonies. All right, and then you have Nuestra Shra de la Caridad del Cobre. All right. It's Our Lady of Charity. It's a pantheon of the great mothers. And then you have the Virgin Guadalupe, which is Tonazan. The brown Madonna. I would say this the light brown Madonna. And then you got the dark brown Madonna. All right. And then I showed y'all the 7 powers. All right. These represents the forces of nature, the Loas and the Orishas. And then you have Ochosi in the middle. Some call it the Christos energy, etc. All right. And then just an example in Santeria, a powerful one besides the Virgin Guadalupe, we're going to look at a powerful energy that works in Santeria is Saint Expedite. Saint Expedite. You have urgent needs. Saint Expedite is just a derivative or a branch, a offspring of Great Spirit in this form, right? Personified, Saint Expedite. So if you need some expeditiously, you have an urgent need, you can call on Saint Expedite, and it works. You just gotta, have the essentials. You have a pound cake and some red wine in your petition. All right. So, if you want to use any of these 7 potent powers, okay. So this is what our ancestors was doing before Catholicism, before Lent. We already had purification ceremonies. We already had that shit. And I just wanted to, show y'all, some of how I get down, because I am your Creole Indigenous spiritualist, right? Ancestral shapeshifter in this bitch. All right. So I represent. I'm about this life. This is my life. So, and I'm taking y'all on a journey inside some of it. And so in Creole and in Creole Indigenous ceremonies, we do have sacred inebriation where we pour libations of rum. All right. Hence the sugar cane fields. All right. And I do have a picture of the voodoo priestess. Representation of the prophetesses, the voodoo priestesses, hoodoo priestesses in the world. All right. You have your sacred rum. You pour libations and you take some too. All right. So that's just an overview of some of the spiritual practices that our ancestors have been doing before pre-Catholicism, before Abrahamic religions. We had our own spirituality and culture. So, all right, let's get back here. All right, so yes, you have the sacred candles on there. You have the veve, then you have the rosary. You have the sacred beads. Now, our ancestors made corn beads, just like this is a corn sacred pipe. We made corn beads. We had beads that was made from sacred crystals and rocks from the earth. They had power, etc. And so the rosary kind of taps into that. Even that symbol, that is the cross, is really the crossroads at the end of the day. At the crossroads, you meet your ancestors and spirit guides at the crossroads. Okay? That's a place where you can meet them. You can meet them anywhere, but the crossroads is a sacred place. That's where the spiritual realm and the earth realm intersect and cross paths. They intersect where you can tap in. So the crossroads could be spiritually, mentally, or physically. You at the crossroads putting in work. It's totally up to you, your ancestors, and your spirit guides. So, all right, now let's look at, let me pull this up. All right, so this little article, we're going to look at some articles. And I was telling y'all about how the colonizers, their little pagan holidays got mixed in with ours. We already had ceremony, culture, spirituality, festivals, all that. Sacred purification rites, all that. We already had that shit, right? So, all right. So, this, we talked about, how debauchery has crept in there and they was doing Lupercalia, etc., fertility rites, etc. This is so okay. I'm gonna just start here. All right. As Catholic Christianity spread throughout Europe during the first millennium, different cultures celebrated the last day before Lent in their own ways, adapting the practices to suit their cultures. In France, the holiday became particularly popular as people feasted on foods that would be given up during the 40 days of Lent, like meat, eggs, milk, were finished off in one day, giving the holiday its French title of MardiGras. It's Fat Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, etc., right? As Europeans crossed the Atlantic to colonize the Americas, they brought their religious practices. I didn't say spirituality. They brought their religious practices, Abrahamic religions, right? From the onset, holidays such as Mardi Gras, Carnival were celebrated in the colonies with as much enthusiasm as there were celebrated in Europe. As the colony swelled with European immigrants, the celebrations went from some simple shit to elaborate. In New Orleans, they had mass balls, public celebrations, and it became common, etc. So, all right, here we go. However, in the 18th century, the Spanish took control over New Orleans and having a more militant and serious perspective on faith. They imposed significant restrictions on the holiday revelry. Among them, they banned mass balls. However, by 1823, this ban was lifted and parades returned by 1837. At this point, the celebration began to lose its identity as an exclusively Catholic tradition and became more secularized over the century. This is their perspective, but y'all get the gist of what they're saying. In Louisiana, Mardi Gras is an official state holiday. Yes. In other parts of the world, the holiday became a season unto itself, each branded with unique cultural practices. For example, we went over this. What was it? 1094 and 1296. They was trying to do some celebrations in Venice and somewhere else. But we know we broke down Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean over to the Americas, to Mobile, Alabama, and then the whole state of Louisiana. Okay, southern states, they do celebrate Carnival Mardi Gras. All right, so in Venice, Italy, it is famous for the mass balls to take place on Mardi Gras and the days before. The Venetian tradition dates back to the 13th century, and the city remains a popular Mardi Gras destination today. All right, still, the original intent of Mardi Gras has always been to indulge, celebrate. It's celebrating the sugarcane harvest, it's celebrating life. Okay. Within the context of Catholic morality and reason, the last day before the start of Lenten season. Here, it is appropriate to mention that while Lent is a season of self-sacrifice and repentance, it is not meant to be a period of self-punishment or extreme hardship. All right. Lent and Easter, right? So it begins Easter. Okay. Lent and Easter. We have it beginning Wednesday, February 18th, and it ends April 2nd. All right. This year. All right. So they kind of break down the importance of the things, right? According to them, right? Stations of the Cross every Friday. Stations of the Cross refers to the depiction of the final hours or the passion of the Jesus character, the allegorical character of Jesus, and the devotion commemorating the passion, blah, blah, blah. All right. Living Lent. All right. Committing your faith and choose to live Lent. Join the 40-day challenge to authentically live the Lenten season, blah, blah, blah. Then you have Mardi Gras, Carnival, Fat Tuesday. All right. And we did talk about this. And then Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of the season of Lent. It takes place 46 days before Easter Sunday. It is a season of penance, reflection, and fasting. All right. You have Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday, the Sunday before Ishtar, Easter, commemorates the Jesus character's triumphal entry into the place. An event mentioned in all four canonical gospels, etc. Right? Then you have the Holy Week on Palm Sunday, celebrating the first joy of the season. You see how they just like took you from celebration of the sugarcane harvest and enjoying life, culture, spirituality, culture, and feasting and having fun, enjoying life, and then they take you to the purification. Now, like I said, our ancestors did purification ceremonies before Abrahamic religions, but the Catholic Church inserted their own. All right. Then you have the Holy Thursday, the Last Supper. The Holy Thursday is complex and profound of all religious observances. It celebrates the Last Supper with the disciples, a celebration of the Passover. And these events are describing things that are happening in the heavens and the constellations. It's being mimicked here on the earth realm, right? Jesus and disciples. It's the sun and the planets. Okay. We can go deeper. I do have an Enigma Solver playlist where we can go deeper on religion. But I'm trying to keep it to where we're talking about Lent. Because we talked about pre-Lent a little bit. We're going to talk about pre-Lent, and we're going to talk about Lent and Catholicism, how they inserted their shit. All right. So you have that, this Holy Thursday, the Last Supper. Then you have Good Friday. All right, April 3rd. On Good Friday, each member of this church tries to understand what cost the Jesus Christ character has won in redemption, etc. It's a holy week. And then you have Ishtar Sunday, Easter Ishtar Sunday. And it goes back also to fertility rites, ascending, becoming your best self, etc. These are allegorical things, all right, that they give them life, okay? Then you have Easter Sunday, Ishtar Sunday, the principal feast of their ecclesiastical year. All right, so this is the shit that, okay. So Ash Wednesday is one of the most popular days in the liturgical calendar. What is the purpose of this holy day? Where does it come from? What do the ashes symbolize? Is it okay to receive ashes on the street or dine out in public afterward? All right. All right, so they say the objective Ash Wednesday is one of the most popular days in the liturgical calendar. What is the purpose of the holy day? Where does it come from? What do the ashes symbolize? Is it okay to receive ashes on the street or to dine out in public afterward? And they want you to take this course and shit, right? We're not taking the fucking course, but it's just showing you a depiction. And we broke down leading up to it what it is, right? And they got something for each day if you want to go through this. Now, when I was in high school, all through high school, from freshman year, basically from freshman year to my junior year, I took French. And my French teacher, she had a Creole background too. And she talked about Mardi Gras and Carnival. And she also had us doing Lent and shit. What y'all gonna give up for 40 days? So it was very interesting because my household, I knew that I had Indigenous background, but my household was like regular Christianity, like Pentecostal, Baptist, revival, spiritual churches. That was my background. That's what I grew up on. So, yeah. So the whole Catholic thing, growing up, we thought Catholic Church, Lutheran, and those Presbyterian churches, we thought those churches were so dry and dead. They didn't have no life. Even young, and I wasn't even all the way tapped into my spiritual maturity like that, I knew it was basically lifeless, just with words, empty words and shit. So It was just, yeah. So let's pull this. I got a couple of things I'm gonna share, but I just want to pull up this. How y'all doing in the chat? How y'all doing in the chat? Okay, so now the ashes from Lent. All right. Ash Wednesday is to mark the beginning of Lent, burning the blessed palm branches or fronds from the previous year's Palm Sunday celebration. These palm branches symbolize the Jesus character's entry into his quote unquote homeland, are traditionally collected and burned and sometimes mixed with holy water or oil to create the ash used to mark a cross on a worshiper's forehead. Symbolism. It represents mortality. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Repentance for sins. Sin is actually a deity in the old world. Look up the deity Sin, Sin. It's very interesting. Okay, this was pre Abrahamic religions. There was a deity called Sin. Okay. All right, so the source, they come from the palms used in the previous year's Palm Sunday, connecting the start of Lent with the Passion, right? The ashes serve as a public outward sign of a personal inward Lenten journey of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Now, okay, so with this whole Lent thing, all I'm saying is our indigenous ancestors had purification, ceremonies, practices, tradition, and culture long before the colonizers came and started doing Lent, before they started doing this. So we already had ceremonies and traditions for that. Now, Lent is it's basically the decision of the person doing it. Now, if you trust that priest, that pope, whoever putting those ashes on you, laying their hands on you, whatever they got, and they touching you and they putting the crossroads symbol on your forehead. They are touching you. Their energy is touching you. If you trust them to do that, cool. If it's all right with you, cool. Or would you rather, do some prayers and affirmations over your own burnt palm leaves and put it on your own head? Then you know whose energy you fucking with. You fucking with your own energy, not a foreign energy. Okay? So these are just things to be mindful of, okay? This is things to be mindful of because you don't know what a person has inside of them and on them, and they put in the crossroads where the spiritual world and the physical world meet. They intercept, and it's right by your sacred portal, your pineal gland, your temple of the spirit of your body. You letting them put that on you? So just be careful. If you celebrate Lent, cool. It's nothing wrong with celebrating and purifying yourself, cleansing yourself. It's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm saying is our ancestors was doing this long before. Matter of fact, we showed them how to do it. But they brought in their little secret debauchery shit. The colonizers did. But that's a whole nother story. Now, I did want to tie in before we had this Catholic Church and they just, seemed to run some shit. You know what I'm saying? Before them, we had the Sibyls. All right. These were the women prophetesses. Before you had the Catholic Church and the Pope, you had the Sibyls. And in indigenous cultures, you had the beloved women, the medicine women. You had great leaders of spiritual knowledge and wisdom. So let's go here. Give me a second. How y'all doing in the chat? Y'all quiet. Y'all quiet today. Let's see. All right, so with this, we're going to go back here real quick. Because we'll close up with this. Just do a trip around the block with this one. But let's go back here. Okay, so we talked about Carnival comes from the Latin words carnival, meaning farewell to the flesh, like many Catholic holidays, in which this is really not a fucking Catholic holiday. It has indigenous roots. Carnival, MardiGras, because you see people that are Negro Indians or diasporic indigenous peoples dressing up in their tribal nation regalia or the regalia of their ancestors. But they try to say this is a Catholic holiday, right? Because they inserted Lent, right? Okay, so it has roots in pre-Christian traditions based on the seasons. All right. Some believe the festival represents a few days added to the lunar calendar to make it coincide with the solar calendar. Since these days were outside the calendar, rules and customs were not obeyed. Others see it as a late winter celebration designed to welcome the coming spring. As early as the middle of the 2nd century, the Romans observed a fast of 40 days, which was preceded by a brief season of feasting, costumes, and merrymaking. Carnival season kicks off with Epiphany, also known as the 12th night, Three Kings Day, and in Eastern churches, Epiphany, which falls on January 6, 12 days after Christmas, celebrates the visit of the wise men bearing gifts for the allegorical infant Jesus character. In cultures that celebrate Carnival, Epiphany kicks off a series of parties leading up to Mardi Gras. That's why we were celebrating. We was counting down to that last day. So we were celebrating from January 6th up until February 17th this year, Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras, right? All right, so this starts with serving of the king's cake, a custom that began in France in the 12th century. Legend has it that the cakes were made in a circle to represent the circular routes of the wise men that they took to find the Jesus character in order to confuse the King Herod and spoil his plans of unaliving the Christ child. All right, in the early days, a coin or a bean was hidden inside the cake, and whoever found the item was said to have good luck the coming year. In Louisiana, bakers now put a small baby representing the allegorical Christ child, right, in the cake. The recipient is then expected to host the next king cake party. All right. There are well-known season-long carnival celebrations in Europe and the diaspora of Latin America, including Nice, France, Cologne, Germany, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Like I told y'all, Trinidad and Tobago was one of the first places in the diaspora. The best known celebration is in the U.S. in Mobile, Alabama, and the whole state of Louisiana. And they highlight New Orleans and the French Catholic communities of the Gulf Coast. All right. Mardi Gras came to the New World in 1699, they say. My previous videos on this playlist, the Flambeau Fridays, we break down the numbers. I believe it was 1092 and 1296. Those were two monumental years where they documented celebrating Carnival, right? Where they actually like wrote down, like our ancestors was already doing it, and then they came and said, okay, we about to document this shit, blah, blah, blah. So it says it supposedly came to the New World in 1699 when a French explorer arrived at the Mississippi River about 60 miles south of present-day New Orleans. He named the spot Point du Mardi Gras because he knew the holiday was being celebrated in his native country that day. We went over this. So eventually, the French in New Orleans celebrated Mardi Gras with mass balls and parties until Spanish government took over in the mid-1700s and banned the celebrations. The ban continued even after the U.S. government acquired the land in which it was they had. Listen, I keep on saying this. The whole state of Louisiana was the whole middle of the fucking U.S. map, right? And they did some illegal transactions talking about the illegal Louisiana purchase because Louisiana belongs to Negro indigenous peoples, just so you know, and specific tribes. But that's a whole nother podcast, right? Okay, so it says that that they banned the celebrations, and then they resumed in 1827. The official colors of Mardi Gras, with their roots in Catholicism, were chosen 10 years later. Purple, a symbol of justice; green, representing faith; and gold to signify power. Yes, we know Mardi Gras means Fat Tuesday in French. The name comes from the tradition of slaughtering and feasting upon a fattened calf on the last day of Carnival. The custom of making pancakes comes from the need to use up fat, eggs, dairy before the fasting and abstinence begins, right? To think this season is only it's a time of repentance is to do it in injustice, they said, while traditional practice of doing something praiseworthy. There is much more to this wonderful season than just additional practices, penance, mortification. All right, so they give their little, 2 cents. All right, so we know they talking about the Jesus character and John the Baptist, etc. Okay, they're talking about all of that. So let's go here. All right. Let's talk about the Sibyls. The Sibyls, they are like, we'll just put them in a more like, okay, how today the Catholic Church is like this symbol to people, right? The Sibyls were like this symbol to people, but each indigenous tribal nation everywhere had their own women prophetess and priestesses and wise women that had the wisdom of spirituality, mental knowledge, and physical power, all of that, right? So, all right. In a strictly historical and chronological sense, the Sibyls, all right, ancient prophetesses, they predate the papacy. They predate Catholicism, all right, as we know it today. And a fraction of it is from the melanated Greco-Roman world, long before speaking of the Jesus character, and even before the establishment of the Christian church, right? Now, however, within the framework of Catholic tradition and art, Sibyls, okay, so they are more than just I really want to give it some justice. And I've done some installments about them sporadically, especially when I'm talking about the Great Mother. But they are basically women prophetesses, okay? So they had an authority. People sought them out to get their wisdom, their guidance, right? So the famous ones are the oracles of Delphi, all right? And I have tapped into this. I even dressed up as one and the Medusa one for like Halloween a couple of years ago. I was tapping into the Sibyls and just how in all of the 7 continents, how women were revered and looked at as spiritual powerhouses, basically. And you had all different factions of them. And so basically the Sibyls are basically what you would see in ancient times before you saw the popes and the priests and Father Misnomer, Father so and so at the Catholic Church. The Sibyls was how they all like be bowing down to the Pope, whoever the Pope is and shit. No, they was bowing down to the Sibyls. And this dark skinned woman is a depiction of the Sibyls, right? So, okay. So in the 11th century, they talk about the Sibyls. And even the 1st century AD. Sibyls were female seers, prophetess from antiquity, whose prophecies were eventually Christianized. And an example of that, y'all remember that nun, that like high level nun lady that they found her and her body was preserved. She was a melanated lady and people was traveling from everywhere to go see her. I'm about to pull it up so y'all can see her. Cause y'all just want. I feel like she was tapping into some Sybil energy because her body was like preserved, and they was trying not. They was giving her backlash, like they was debating if they was gonna give her like sainthood, like that's like in the Catholic Church, that's like the highest honor to become a saint and shit. And they was debating on was they gonna give her this high sainthood title, but her body was like well preserved and she didn't have no chemicals in her body. Her name was Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster. She was found in Gower, Missouri. She showed no significant signs of decomposition nearly 4 years after her 2019 burial. They exhumed her body in April of 2023. The remains were surprisingly intact despite of being unembalmed. She wasn't embalmed and she was in a wooden coffin. I wonder what kind of wood it was. It was some kind of sacred wood. The rare, well-preserved state described as incorrupt, all right, by some in the Catholic community has attracted thousands of visitors, blah, 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 to the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of the Apostles Monastery. All right. So they was trying to debate and say, was she gonna get her sainthood? This is her. She was a melanated woman, and I believe she was tapping into that Sybil's energy. Yeah. And that's my spiritual opinion. She was tapping into that energy. And they probably tried to do some rituals with her too. And I'm looking up, did she get her sainthood? Did she get her sainthood? I want to see, did she get her sainthood? I'm going to ask that. I just want to know. This is kind of laid back Flambeau Fridays. My sacred flame is always lit. Just so y'all know. It's always lit. Even if I ain't rah-rah and just on super on fire. This is kind of a serious, but it's serious, but not as serious. You know what I'm saying? Topic. Let's see. Y'all doing all right in the chat? Let's see. Peace. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, they was lined up to see her. I believe she was tapping into that Sybil energy. And I'm only bringing her up because we just came out. Peace. Lou Era Grassroots 4473. Peace to you. And I'm bringing this up because we're talking about Lent and how Catholicism, came into our indigenous ceremonies and celebrations and festivals. And before, they was looking up to the Catholic Church and the popes and shit. Before them, it was the Sibyls. And before the Sibyls, it was the indigenous medicine women, the beloved women, the wise oracles of old. And that's why I brought her up, speaking on the Sibyls. I want to see, did she get her sainthood? Let's see. They really just hating. Okay, so they saying that she is not currently a canonized saint in the Catholic Church, nor is her sainthood cause formally under consideration, according to the Diocese of KC St. Joseph. While her body was found remarkably preserved, it was incorrupted 4 years after her death. They said this her status. They tried not to give her sainthood, but I believe she was tapping into that Sybil energy. All right. It says this her status. She is considered a servant of God by some faithful, but the church has not initiated the formal multi-year process for sainthood. Yeah. But she showed all of that. I wonder, all them other people that got sainthood, did they exude this type of power even after her spirit has left her body? It's just interesting to me, how they downplay the women, but the Sibyls were on top, and they were the sought after wise women, spiritual women, prophetesses, seers, all of that. What you would view as a voodoo priestess. Someone is the different diasporic spiritual traditions and culture. All right. But this is just interesting to me. All right. So she had all these signs, and they said that, while her preservation is unusual, it does not confirm it's a miracle or a sainthood. They try to downplay her, right? All right. People visited her. Some reported that they had healings by viewing her as a modern saint. She was a Negro Indian nun who founded the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles in Missouri, a traditionalist order. So she was the founder of this, right? Yeah. So, all right. So, right here, I'm just doing the little AI little breakdown, right? About the Sibyls. Okay. Because we could go deeper. And I have on my Enigma Solver playlist, but this is just an overview because we talk about Ash Wednesday and how people let priests put those palm ashes on them, and they make a crossroads on their pineal gland. You got to be careful on who you letting do that. If you're going to be doing it, you burn your own palm leaves and you put your own cross on your own forehead. All right. So, all right. As we said, we was talking about the Sibyls and then the oracles of Delphi. Now, they were ancient seers, priestesses, prophetesses. And this is where I stopped right here. Sibyls were female seers from antiquity whose prophecies were eventually Christianized. They had to Christianize the shit. I'm going to take a drink on that. They had to Christianize the shit. And by the way, I do my own time of fasting, purification, all that. when I feel led to do it. But that's me. Okay. All right. So let's see. They try to, yeah, they have Christianized it, and a lot of this is Christianized. It's very Christianized. It is. And I'm gonna pull up this other thing. So this is a kind of laid back Flambeau Fridays. I was real hyped leading up to Carnival Mardi Gras season. I was real hyped. I was really on fire. Like my fire was blazing. Right now, my fire has it's steady right now. And let me pull up some other stuff that I had tapped into about the symbols. Oh, my nose is sweating. All right. Now, this book is really interesting. Now, if y'all watch Seven Bomar, he does a good breakdown of the symbols. Shout out to him. He been going hard for some years. He shares some books with me. He is a wealth of knowledge. Let's see. Let me go. Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. I'm trying to pull up this book. Excuse me, y'all, while I try to pull up this book. Okay, all right. So, the Sibylline oracles, like I said, the Sibyls were prophetesses, seers, wise women. All right. And they were later Christianized, but that wasn't their origin. They came before Abrahamic religions. Their practices were beyond that, above that shit, right? I'm just gonna look at a couple of things about this. I ain't reading all the shit, but excuse me, y'all. I'm gonna look up this other one, sacred text. Okay, so I like this website right here, Sacred Text. So if y'all want to tap into some sacred texts, missing books from the Bible, etc., I'm outside of all of that shit. I practice Creole and Indigenous spirituality and culture of my ancestors. So, I have studied. When I say I have studied, I even entered into seminary school, but it was on my journey when I had left I left Christianity and I was doing all kind of research and I left. And I started reading the books. They sent me all my books. And I started reading that shit. And I withdrew from school. This was like, I want to say in 2000, the early 2000s. That was my second round of, going to college. And I started reading that shit and I dropped out of seminary school. I did. But yeah. Let's see. Okay, let's see. This site has some good sacred books of any religion, any tradition. They got some books about the shit. You want to do research on your religion, whatever you practicing, whatever you interested in, you can just look at these books, sift through the shit, take what resonates, but take what checks out, do research. But these are some books that your church pastor, your imam, your rabbi, they ain't gonna be going over this shit with you. So I went to the one about the women. So they have a lot of books about the women of old. And this deals with Ishtar, Easter, etc. So this is some good shit, y'all. This is one of my go-to sites when I'm researching religions. They even have some indigenous stuff on here too. So this is sacredtext.com. They the shit. Just so y'all know. Folklore of Women. Let's see what this one is about. But I got the Sybil's one up. Y'all can check out that. And the Medusa thing, they just basically they try to demonize shit so you won't tap into it and learn what the fucking real is. All right. But you can look at these. I'm gonna just, show y'all some book sources that y'all can tap into. This is a lot of shit. This is 100 pages, but this one is 100 pages. So the Sibylline oracles, y'all wanna, tap into that in y'all spare time, and that will coincide with the great Sibyls, the great oracle seers, but they were seers in indigenous culture. All right. Now, this one was a good article. We'll look at this one and we can close out on this one. All right. This is a good article about the Sibyls. All right. And we'll do the Sibyls and then a brief overview of voodoo priestess. All right. So it says the Sibyls were lastly uh, received as the oracles in ancient Greece, Rome. However, their story predates these empires, as they were all over the planet, from the Amazon, Asia Minor, northern and eastern Aquilon, the diaspora, the Caribbean, Hindustan, and matriarchal mamas. That's what they were. All right. These women were representatives of the great mother of the universe, which is why I was showing all my candles that have the great mothers on them. All right. So they were representatives of the great mother of the universe and were revered as prophetess, goddess, priestess, and daughters of Mami Wata, the cosmic divine mother. All right. These daughters, sometimes referred to as the Lulus, were the mothers that seeded humanity and civilized them into tribes. The patriarchal order have done well in attempting to erase or hide the truth, but the truth is hidden inside of the O blood type, and it is out now. According to Mama Zogby, author of The Sibyls, the first prophetess of Mami Wata, the name Sibyl is of mixed origin. It derived from Ethiopian Cushites as a title of sacred initiatory and term of endearment for mama or mommy, known as Sibyl, Sibella, Sibyl, Kybrel, loosely meaning the queen of heaven, the mother of all gods, the great mother, the Misnomer, the Black Madonna, the Brown Madonna, the Virgin Guadalupe, Tonazan, St. Barbara, all these derivatives that I showed y'all earlier, right, with my candles. All right, so this great mother statue, she's looking real XI, okay? All right, so it says, in short, the Sibyls, often referred by the Greeks as the Muses, all right? They were literally the light of divine wisdom and offered the world their gifts that specified in music, art, science, philosophy, law, astronomy, architecture, husbandry, literature, language. All right, they are often or even notated as the mother that seeded the diversity of humanity. Just like in Indigenous stories, we have Caddo in the Caddo culture that is the great mother that taught the tribe basically agriculture in spiritual ways, just like Selu, the great corn mother. She taught, the tribe things about agriculture and spiritual things, etc. All right. It says the ancient oracles were the priestesses and mystics that served their community by entering trance states as multi-dimensional mediums. They held many divine prophecies that would entail the cyclic fate of birth, maturation, death, and regeneration of societies and civilizations. These women guided societal, economic, and political order of matriarchal societies because of their understanding of cycles, science, metaphysics, and more. They were able to predict and outline the rise and fall of the patriarchal order. They understood the necessity for cycles of human destruction and rebuilding. All right. They foretold of a sun, thunder god, to eclipse the lunar goddess, patriarchy usurping the matriarchy, where darkness will cover the face of the earth, rise of negative accumulation of karma, and the slaughter of the first divine calf, and the rise of a new sun, thunder god, from the depths to be claimed as the Holy One, to restore and liberate as a sacrifice. And if y'all watch some of my old videos, I always talk about the cycles of life. It is birth, life, death, rebirth, resurrection. It's the circle of life, the cycles of life, the birthing forth, the building, the destroying, the rebuilding, the cycles of life. All right. This story or prophecy very well may have been about the changing of ages from the Taurus to the Pisces age, as if was foretold of the Anuki, a fish deity, would be sent to liberate and redirect the rebellion of the rising patriarchal order into its fall, um, and restore the reign of virtue and justice on earth. Some scholars claim that these Sibyl prophecies were referring to either Buddha, Krishna, the Jesus character, of myth and history. All right, these allegorical figures. Whatever the stories of these oracles, the Sibyls were highly revered prior to their self foretold overthrowing. These women reigned for centuries and ages in peace and harmony with nature and cosmic cycles. They spread their wisdom on all corners of the earth, from the modern day diaspora, even Akbulan, the Caribbean, ancient Kush, Kemet, Mizoram, Hindustan, Eastern Ethiopia, what they call India today, Mesopotamia, Peloponnesus, Asia, Turkey, Ionia, Manoa, Europe, Mycenae, Delphi, and the Americas, the She, the Mayan, the Olmec, the whole Mixtec, the Amazons. They were known all over the world as Empress Mothers, titled as the Great Empress Mother, the Great Goddess of Heaven. They say Queen, but the Great Goddess of Heaven. This time was known as the Golden Age. So you have the misnomer, the Black Buddha. Okay, so temples, altars, and shrines were erected in their honor all over the world. Many of these sacred sites are of the seven wonders of the world. These sacred sites were maintained by the Sibyls and a contingent of Vestal virgins. Okay. Persian Sibyl was said to be a prophetic priestess presiding over the Apollyon oracle. She is said to have foretold the exploits of Alexander the Greek. Libyan Sibyl was prophetic priestess presiding over the ancient Zeus Ammon oracle and the Siwa oasis in the western desert of Egypt. Kemet. All right. The oracle here was consulted by Alexander after his conquest of Egypt. The Delphic Sibyl was a legendary figure who gave prophecies in the sacred precinct of Apollo and Delphi. The Delphic Sibyl was not the same as Pythia. All right. All right. You got the Oracle of Delphi, and you have the Pythoness. Okay, so you have the Pythoness and Medusa. Yeah, if you know about the energy, you know about the energy. Okay, all right. All right. The priestess of Apollo, who was also known as the Oracle of Delphi. Then you have the Cimmerian Sibyl. The Cimmerian Sibyl, by names Carmentis, was the prophetic priestess presiding over the Apollyon oracle at Cimmerim in Italy, near Lake Avernus. Erythraean, I'm messing up that word, forgive me. Sibyl was sighted at Erythrae, a town in Ionia. All right, she is said to have predicted the Trojan War and prophesied to the Greeks who were moving against Ilium both that Troy would be destroyed and that Homer would write falsehoods. Samian Sibyl. Samian Sibyl was the priestess presiding over the Apollyon oracle near Hera's temple on the Isle of Samos, a Greek colony. Cumian Sibyl. This was the Sibyl that was most concerned with the Romans, located near Greek city of Naples, whom Virgil's Aeneas consults before this descent to the lower world. So great men sought after these sibyls, these great oracles, these prophetess, these seers, to get answers before they made major decisions. Yeah, different shows they tap into it too. Different movies and different shows tap into this too. Even if y'all seen like The Witcher, it's interesting. Okay. All right. So you also have this was the city of Naples. All right. Whom Virgil's Aeneas consults before this descent to the lower world. It was she who supposedly sold to Tarquinius Superbus, all right, the last king of Rome, the original Sibylline books, all right. Hellespontine Sibyl, or Trojan Sibyl, presided over Apollyon oracle at Dartania. The Sibylline collection at Gergis was attributed to the Hellespontine Sibyl and was preserved in the temple of Apollo at Gergis. Thence it passed to Erythrae, where it became famous. Phrygian Sibyl appears to be a doublet of the Hellespontine Sibyl. Turbine Sibyl to the classical Sibyls of Greeks and Romans. Now, y'all know that some of these Greeks and Romans were melanated people, just so y'all know, okay? All right. The Romans added a 10th, the Tiburtine Sibyl, whose seat was the ancient Etruscan town of Tibur. And apocalyptic pseudo prophecy exists attributed to the Tiburtine Sibyl written in 380 CE, but with revisions and interpolations added at later dates. It purports to prophesy the event of a final emperor named Constance. All right. Vanquishing the foes of Christianity, bringing about a period of great wealth and peace, ending paganism and converting the what they call the small hats on social media. After vanquishing Gog and Magog, the emperor is said to resign his crown to God. This would give way to the Antichrist. Ippolito d'Este rebuilt the Villa d'Este at Tibur, the modern Tivoli, from 1550 onward, and commissioned elaborate fresco murals in the villa that celebrate the Tiburtine Sibyl as prophesying the birth of the Christ, allegorical Christ figure to the classical world. As Christianity, remember they said the Sibyls became Christianized after a while. At first, they was known in their raw element, seeing and prophesying and helping their people, their community, right? Basically being the prophetesses and the spiritual counselors of the people, especially of the people in power. All right. It says, as Christianity gained strength, the purpose of the Sibyls shifted. Because you see the Sibyls highlighted, and then when Catholicism came in there, you see the popes highlighted when patriarchy kind of just went the fuck rampant, right? Many of them were withered, martyred, or went into hiding, all right? Preserving the teachings, all right? It is believed that the Dogon tribe, uh, I'm sure the Hopi too, the Pygmy tribes, and the oldest tribes of matriarch order still hold the truths. They still hold the truths and wisdom along with the prophecies of the Sibyls. These mystic women's origins and stories are growing in resonance, resonance as more women strengthen their spiritual gifts and foresight. And I do have this book, and it breaks down the Sibyls and the oracles, and how they just broke down the different places where they were and who they assisted and everything, the famous things that they prophesied, basically. So this was a good article about the Sibyls. I did like this one. So y'all can look at this, and I'm gonna see if this book is over here, cause I'm gonna read something from it. Yep, it's right here. Okay. Now I've done some installments of this book. I like this book because it talks about this worldwide peace, George. I know I've been reading. I ain't been looking at my comments, y'all. Peace to everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in with me. This is a kind of laid back one tonight, even though this is still Flambeau Fridays, Defy Fridays, Fun Fridays. My sacred flame is still lit. It just ain't blazing right now. But we just going over the Sibyls because they were highlighted before the popes in the Catholic Church. And we just celebrated Carnival, Mardi Gras, and we had Ash Wednesday for all the Catholics out there. And I was just saying, burn your own palm leaf ashes and put that sacred crossroads on your own forehead, on top of your own pineal gland, your own portal. You got to be leery of who you let lay hands on you. So we was just talking about indigenous spiritual practices that we was doing before Catholicism. And that's what we was basically, focusing on. But this is a depiction of the great Sibyls, and this is like one depiction of one of the Sibyls. the great prophetesses, the seers, of course, the archetype, Marie Laveau, voodoo priestess. So spiritual, wise women that are spiritually, mentally, and physically powerful. We were also looking at the folklore of women. So this is before, Catholicism and Lent just attached itself to Carnival, Mardi Gras. And I did share, the Urzulis, the great melanated Madonna, the great dark brown Madonna. They call her Misnomer Black Madonna. But this book just basically talks about there is a worldwide brother and sisterhood underground. And they tap into all the ancient knowledge, basically. And the ancient knowledge and wisdom on how to master yourself and come together as a people. But like this book, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up as PDF. And this is talking about the serpent goddess of tradition. Now, in this aspect, this is talking about the oracles of Delphi, the Pythoness, the Pythian priestess. And they used to chew these laurel leaves, and the smoke from the laurel leaves will put them in this like trance, and they would tap into the spiritual realm and reveal all these secrets of the universe and these prophecies, etc. So these great prophetess women were doing their shit before you had the Catholic priests putting ashes on your head during Ash Wednesday. All right. The women, the wise women, were showing the people how it's supposed to be done. They were serving their community, etc., which is a depiction of how the stories of our different tribal nations. Like Selu is one for the Ani and Waya. Zocado is one for the Caddo. Just the great women that were the great mother, the teacher, a physical depiction of it that showed the tribes how to do agriculture and how to tap into spiritual things. So this has been thus the woman's role for a long time in a lot of indigenous cultures. So we have this voodoo, Santeria, Catholicism. We briefly touched on Santeria, where the saints will be in front of the Loas and the Orishas, the Cabaclos, the indigenous spirits. So the saints will be the forefront, but they were still tapping into voodoo in the background. They were still tapping into, all those rich practices. So I'm going to see if I can pull up this book, but it's basically just talking about even the Medusa title, the great Pythoness. Let's see. It was because of her spiritual wisdom, her light, she had ascended to this whole nother level. It's about ascending spiritually, mentally, and physically, healing, restoring, and mastering self, and helping your community. Basically, that's what it's about. Okay, here we go. Y'all doing all right? I've been on here an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to shut it down in I think I'm going to shut it down in 20 minutes at 2 hours. But this is a laid back Flambeau Fridays. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Let me pull up this book. And y'all check out that website. They got all them sacred books I was showing y'all. This ain't the book. This ain't the book that I was talking about, but let me find it. Hope y'all doing all right in the chat. Give me a minute. Let's see. Oh, okay. They not. Okay, this is what they did with the book. This is the book that I have right here. And it talks about all these ancient societies, the women and the men. From the jaguar and eagle warriors to the Jedis to the goddesses, the serpent goddesses, the oracles, the sibyls, the great women and the men, the Wu warriors, where Wu-Tang get their shit from. It was the women Wu and men Wu warriors. But just trying to get to the women because the women predated these Catholic priests that put those ashes on your head Ash Wednesday. All right. I would advise you to burn your own palm leaves and put your own ashes on your forehead and in front on top of your pineal gland, your first eye, crossroads where the spirit and the earthly physical meet. You want to be putting that on your head, or somebody you truly trust that has cleansed and purified themselves before they touch it on you. All right. But this one, they kind of break down. They give a pretty good breakdown. They do. But it's not the book. It talks about, your Kundalini energy, alchemy, mysticism, the sacred knowledge, spiritual awakening and personal growth, healing. Yeah. They really do give like an overview, but I'm going to find it. So they talk about the Nagas. Okay, right here they talk about. All right, so another example will be, with the serpent energy. Okay, the Uraeus, a rearing cobra, symbolizes divine authority and protection for the pharaohs. The serpent goddess, Wajet, represented sovereignty and was the protector of Lower Egypt. The myth of Apophis, a chaos serpent, embodies primordial evil defeated by the sun god Ra. Now, these serpent energies come in voodoo with Dambala and Aida Wedo, the great mother and father energy. The serpent energy is that your spiritual force, your Kundalini, your Wakanyan, your Prana, your Chi energy. That's your fire. That's your sacred fire, your life force. But like with the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, Dambala and Aida are the great serpent goddess and god, the feminine and the masculine. So right here, it talks about The myth of Apophis, okay, we said that one. And then in Greek mythology, the caduceus, a staff entwined with serpents, is associated with the healing and medicine linked to Hermes. The snake of Delphi, guarded by the oracle of Apollo, symbolizes divine wisdom. You have the oracles of Delphi, the Sibyls. This is where the Sibyls will fit in right here. The myth of Medusa, whose gaze turned people to stone, they say, embodies dangerous knowledge and transformation. But it's only dangerous for somebody that's not an adept. I'm an adept. And then some people are initiated in a traditional sense. Great Spirit initiated me into a lot of stuff that I don't even speak about on here. And I speak about a lot of shit on my channel. But I am an adept. And there are things that I don't say. Sometimes I just sit back and watch people talk about shit and just observe. Not necessarily acting like I don't know, but just listening, observing. And they don't even know what I know, what knowledge, what wisdom I have been entrusted with and tapped into. But here we go. All right. So basically, it's just the Serpents of Wisdom. But this is the book. If y'all want to get the book, with any book, you want to sift through it. You want to research. You want to take what was real and raw and throw away the other shit. All right? That's just what you do when you're reading books. That's what you do when you're reading books. And so basically, okay, they talk about Athene or Athena or the they talk about the great weavers. Also, briefly, they do. She is a patroness, a protectress, a prophetess, a seer, a matriarch. Who gives prophetic messages. So I'm gonna just read this because it's not letting me pull it up. But they tapped into different herbs and put you in this different state. You can do it without herbs and roots. You can tap in into this. Basically, you tap into the spiritual channel where you communicate with the spiritual realm and reveal it, right? Okay, so they just give a depiction of this, right? Once a month, following preliminary purifications. Okay, this is what happened, which included fasting of 3 days and intake of a special concoction or potion of mind expanding herbs. All right. The Pythonian priestess, the Python, the great serpent, is just a depiction of your Kundalini energy in your body, which coils like a serpent, a snake, right? Okay, so she will climb on a throne which straddled a large gaping hole in the ground, the vortexual home of an earth pythoness. After comfortably seating herself, the priestess would proceed to go into a hypnotic trance while staring directly into the eyes of this live snake. Then, once the serpent goddess started to speak Through her, the priestess would maintain her deep trance by chewing laurel leaves, an herb sacred to the Pythonis, and by inhaling cannabis burned on a brazier directly below her seat. So she would chew on laurel leaves and inhale some ancient, holistic, organic cannabis that was burned on a brazier below her seat. So that smoke was coming up, and she was chewing on them laurel leaves, and she was in a deep trance to give the people words of wisdom, basically. She was tapping into the spiritual realm. This is what priestesses did before the Catholic popes and the friars and the Misnomer fathers of the Catholic Church. Okay. All right. At the seat of the goddess, sacred mysteries at Eleusis, the ancient secrets of immortality, were transmuted to initiates within a compound which comprised of a labyrinth and a huge temple of initiation with 42 pillars supporting its roof and a seating capacity of 3,000. Within the underground labyrinth, a truth seeker, could become a son or daughter of the goddess by reenacting the sacred mystery of Persephone and Proserpine, or Persephone. The first serpent, Persephone, was a personification of the serpent goddess and the serpent life force. That's your own life force within, your spiritual energy that starts at your root chakra and goes all the way up to your crown chakra. That's your spiritual life force, right? So, so she was the personification of the serpent goddess and the serpent life force, which must spend part of the year above earth during the growing season and part below during the season of winter, what they say death. And this is why a lot of voodoo priestesses and people within diasporic indigenous religions, but not religion, spirituality, culture, have snakes. They be having the snakes, right? Let's look at a depiction of this. This is what they show. Depictions. Yes, even the great voodoo priestess Marie Laveau, she had a snake, and its name was Zombie. Where my thing go? Okay, yeah. She had a sacred serpent named Zombie. All right. Le Grand Zombie. And it is a depiction of a representation of the supreme creatress spirits of the voodoo tradition. Marie Laveau famously used the snake in her rituals, particularly on St. John's Eve, June 23rd, at Lake Pontchartrain, right? And this is where I did my head washing on that day. I didn't do it at Lake Pontchartrain, but I did it. And this is me right after that with my sacred cigar. All right. And so she used the snake in her rituals. especially on St. John's Eve, June 23rd, at Lake Pontchartrain. Legend holds that she would dance and sing with the snake, using it as a conduit for her spiritual powers. Many accounts suggest that the snake was her familiar. Right. You Brujas and Wiccans know about the familiars, right? Always nearby and ready to act as a servant to her will. The snake's presence, and in some legends, its shed skin, were used to represent the cycles of life, death, and infinity. Marie Laveau is often depicted in art and popular culture. Yes, we know this, right? But I was focusing on the snake. All right. It is an influence in voodoo, mysticism, etc. And I was going to show a picture of it. So you see the snakes. Yes, the snakes. It represents that powerful energy. All right, so it says, yes, Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans, the real one. All right. Now, I have been here. I have a picture of me outside of her tomb. They say this is her shrine, her tomb. That's what they say. Ooh, okay. Okay. This is what they say, that this is her tomb. All right. So they did like this reenactment of this. That's what they did. All right. Yeah, she was a Negro Indian woman. Her lineage was of diasporan, misnomer African, American Indian, Native American, and French. So this person basically gave honor to her, basically. But and I'm gonna show Dambala and Aida of the powerful voodoo spirituality system. This is about your personal power. That's what it is about. That's what it is. And like in my in the cards, they are I have cards for Dambala and Aida. Is the great serpent cards. The creators and creator, Loas. All right. All right. They are two of the most important and ancient Loa spirits in Haitian voodoo. All right. IET. In which a lot of Haitians during the Haitian Revolution went to the port of Orleans, to Louisiana. All right. All right. It also represents creation, fertility in the sky. They are often depicted as a pair of snakes. Damballa as the white serpent, the sky father, and Aida Wedo as the rainbow serpent, the great mother. All right. Aida, she is the wife of Damballa and embodies the rainbow, wind, water, and fertility. And when we say the rainbow, this is in the traditional sense of how Great Spirit intended it. All right. Okay. This is about balance. The original sense. The rainbow belongs to Great Spirit. Just so y'all know. All right. She is the root or the Racine Loa, deeply connected to the earth and sky. She helps Damballa support the world and brings wealth and well-being to her followers. The cosmic union. They are together. They represent the union of heaven and earth, spiritual things and earthly things, where they intercept at the crossroads, often depicted as being intertwined. The Rada Loa both belong to the Rada family of spirits, which are considered gentle and wise and benevolent. The dual nature, in some beliefs, they are considered a single entity sharing a dual spirit, just like God, the creator creators, has this dual spirit, the mother and the father. All right. Legacy. Their origins trace back to the diaspora of the Caribbean. Voodoo traditions before, okay, so it traces back to the diaspora of the Caribbean. So, whether that's Haitian voodoo or Louisiana voodoo, it has deep indigenous spirituality and cultural roots from the Americas and the diaspora. Just to give y'all just some, some examples. So basically, the premise of this was tapping into what Ash Wednesday was about, right? And challenging and encouraging you to do your own, burn your own palm leaves and put your own ashes on, because you are making a crossroad on your pineal gland. That is heavy. That is like a powerful thing that you let somebody else do when you can do it yourself. Okay? As an adept, I've done some things by myself, being led by the Spirit. So, it is best to do it yourself. You know what's going on with you, what spirits, what you done tapped into. You don't know what that priest or that pope has been doing, and they doing, putting them ashes on you, making that the crossroad symbol on your pineal gland, your first eye at that. So that's all. So I was just comparing voodoo, Santeria, and the various spiritual cultures that predate Catholicism. And we had our own purification and cleansing rituals before the colonizers. And we had our own festivals. They learned from our ancestors, just so you know. So this is why you see the contrast in this. You have the all shades of melanin over here, and then you have the Caucasian aspect of the Catholicism over here. Now this is just a veve. This is in between worlds. Okay. So, all right, y'all got any comments or questions before I close down? Because at the end of the day, it's about birth, life, death, rebirth, resurrection, and the cycles of life. That's what it's about at the end of the day. So I hope y'all enjoy Carnival MardiGras. And if y'all did partake in Ash Wednesday or your own ceremony where you are choosing to fast from something, to cleanse yourself of something, let something go for a couple of days. It don't got to necessarily be 40 days unless you just, diehard Catholic, etc. That's on you. But I'm an adept in Creole and Indigenous spirituality and culture, and I do different ceremonies when I feel led by the Spirit. So I think I'm about to close out on that, y'all. Like I told y'all, I'm showing my YouTube channel some TLC because I've been going hard on my partnership channels, and I still do spiritual readings. You can still get your your indigenous Creole Indigenous life path sessions, your readings, or your Indigenous astrology. I have several decks. I have a lot of Indigenous and Creole decks that I use, oracle decks that I use, and then I can do your Indigenous astrology. So I still do that. The links are in the description. If you want your spiritual reading, life path session, get at me. The link to my link tree is in there, my website, my contact page. It's linked to my PayPal, and I think my Cash App too. So if you want those services, you know how to reach me, and you will see me on Flambeau Fridays on my YouTube channel, podcast, TV, all of that there. You will see me here on Fridays, and periodically on a spiritual Saturday or Sunday, periodically, and then you can catch me on my partnership channels too. So anybody got any last words? Any last words? Let me show this before I get out here. Get out of here. Because I don't want to have no shit. Because I showed some shit. Let me see. Hold on. Let me just do this while I'm on my way out of here. Let's go. Alright, I'm showing my little disclaimer. And usually I show this at the beginning, but my nose is sweating. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna show my disclaimer. And the links are in the description of this video on how to reach me if you want spiritual services. I do Creole and Indigenous spiritual services. All right. That is what I do. So you would just follow my link tree. All right. And go to one of my links to my store or to my website, my YouTube podcast, my YouTube channel. All right. You can go to any of those places and support, like, share, subscribe, etc. My store. You can check out the Oracle collection. I have workout gear, yoga mats, etc. for my oracles out there. All right, my prophetesses, my seers, my prophets of ancient and present times, honoring the matriarch, My designs are based on my Creole Indigenous lineage, ancestry, genealogy, and of course my logo. I got some other things on here too. I got a little bit of everything on here. Water bottles, coffee mugs, etc. Got a little bit of everything. So I do have a Shopify. They was acting funny with launching my shit. I had some Creole Indigenous shit on there. It was acting funny. So, and this was it. This is part of it. Like, they got my design wrong because it's missing the feather right there. But here it is. This is what I was, yeah. This is what was supposed to be pre Mardi Gras Carnival. So, and let me show this because something happened like maybe 5 minutes ago. So I gotta show this. I gotta show this right quick. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Because when I said something happened. Give me a second. Where is it? All right, here it is. Right here. When I had said, okay, this is me at Marie Laveau's tomb in St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is me in front of it. Now, I know that this is a powerful place. Now, they say that is her tomb, and then some say it's not. Some say that she's like the archetype of the voodoo priestess. Just that energy and what it represents. It does the powerful feminine energy good. It represents us good because she was powerful, she put in work, etc. So shout out to all the great women, priestesses, prophetess, oracles, etc. Seers, pisatimas, alichis, etc. Shout out to all the mambos, the adepts, all that. Shout out to us. Shout out to us. So I had to show this because when I said some earlier, something had happened. So I'm showing this picture because I feel led to show it. Just to show that I actually tapped into that energy. And I want to give the proper respect to, the female archetype of a powerful spiritual warrioress, priestess. So, all right, y'all don't have any last minute questions or comments. I appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with me for a spell. Y'all are the shit. I appreciate y'all so much. And y'all can tap in, do your own sacred ceremonies. Get your sacred tobacco out. do your own cleansing and purification. Tap in and go forward. Learn who you are, who your people are, and take it to the next level. Help yourself, your family, and your community. Go forward. I love y'all. I want to say I shall. Peace, 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 peace.